We have recently learned that the national mandate, safer at home, meaning stay safe for yourself and for others, it is not something we do well unless we are really sick. Staying home feels like a hostage. Media chattering is saying people are bored. People in India who venture out was immediately stopped by police and they were punished without exception because they were endangering the publics. Here around us, nursing homes are in lockdown to protect their own vulnerable residents. LA Times article last Thursday said, this crisis could bankrupt rural hospitals. Doctors and nurses worries about lack of protective gear. In Spain, COVID-19 cases reached more than 45,500, with more than 3,600 deaths. Worldmeter information reports that Italy had 80,539 cases reported yesterday, Thursday, and about 8,165 deaths. Hospitality and entertainment industries are already experiencing a massive loss. A friend of mine who visits massage parlor made a phone call recently for an appointment, but the business was already gone. He asked his friends, can we pay it forward so that small businesses could survive during this trying time? On Thursday, unemployment claim was 3 million. Will the $2 trillion stimulus bill just approved be enough? Fear of virus canceled Summer Olympic and postponed General Conference of the United Methodist Church. I'm not sure whether California Pacific Annual Conference will gather in Redlands in June. It is a different world. Am I painting you a very grim, unprecedented picture of our world today? You bet I am. It sure feels like we are living in the midst of dry bones. In the text, Prophet Ezekiel said, the Spirit of the Lord brought him to the middle of a valley. Lori Wagner, somebody I read, said, so we get this experience of this vast, barren valley. Ezekiel is getting a tour of the entirety of this valley. And everywhere are bones. The vastness of this devastation must be itself sobering. Then comes the added words about those bones, utterly dry. Obviously, this devastation happened not recently, but long ago. These bones are long abundant here, long dried out from years of baking under the sun in this unseen, deserted, desolate valley. Ezekiel testifies, I was set down in the midst of a valley. It was full of bones. King Duncan is another person I read. He wrote, perhaps these were the bones of an army that had been trapped in this valley by hostile forces and had been summarily slaughtered. The flesh had long ago fallen away. Now there was nothing left but a pile of bones baked by the sun. In Ezekiel's words, they were dry bones. I sure would assume that Prophet Ezekiel was totally devastated or simply speechless. How do you define such a tragedy? But the Lord asked a very powerful question, a question that is important to your life and mine even today. Son of man, can these bones live? Will this coronavirus pandemic end? When will our life return to normalcy? What will be our new normal? Sisters and brothers, none of us know how exponentially this crisis will drag on. How many lives do we have to bury before this COVID-19 coronavirus can be stopped? Should I even be speaking about this pandemic this morning? I'm not here to stir fear. I'm not here to cause any panic. But I am here to speak hope. I want to answer to God's question to Ezekiel, can these bones live? And I would solemnly and prayerfully answer yes, even in the midst of dry bones. We as people of faith must speak hope. We must all hope and pray that the divine will intervene and interrupt our fear and teach us to trust in God to heal our broken world again. Can these dry bones live? Some people have been asking these questions in many different ways. For example, a young man in a wheelchair, crippled by accident, asks, do I have a future? A couple sits in a counselor's office. Can our marriage be saved? A widow sinks into a chair only a few hours before they lowered into the ground the casket that contained her precious husband. Can I go on? She wonders as she softly cries. Parents who have recently buried their children. How can this be? We are not supposed to bury our children. And those of you who survived cancer or any other deadly disease, you may have asked, how can I go on? Can I have a meaningful life. God asked, "Son of man, can these bones live? Can that which is dead be returned to life? Can a situation that has been written off as a hopeless be recouped, revived, resurrected? Is there any hope?" Probably a primary question in every mind today. Those 3 million people who file for unemployment are probably asking, is there hope for us? Again, King Duncan wrote these words. Many, many people live in the valley of dry bones. Charles Plumb, author of the book I'm No Hero, has been in that valley. He was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. One day, his plane was hit. As it fell toward the earth, it turned upside down, threatening to trap him inside. He managed to turn the plane around enough so that he could eject. He landed in enemy territory and was quickly captured. For the next 6 years, his home was an 8 by 8 foot cell with a dirt floor and a tin can for a toilet. His captors frequently tortured him by twisting his body with ropes. They would twist my body and I would think, I can take this much. I know I couldn't take any more. And then they would twist me tighter. Often he would be thrown back into his cell with torn muscles. And he would tell himself, well, I lived through that. I know I couldn't take any more. Somehow he survived. One day, Charles saw a wire appear beneath the bamboo wall in his cell and wiggle as if giving a signal. He watched the wire for several days before he had enough courage to pull on it. When he did, he found it came from another prisoner. Using the wire to signal letters of the alphabet, he began to ask questions. He discovered that 200 other men were being brutalized just as he was. When he was finally freed, Charles was flown to San Francisco, where he quickly tried to call his wife. He couldn't locate her. Then he called his father, who told him that his wife had left him. "Come on home, son," his father said. "It's a new day. Let's start fresh." After all he had gone through, was a new day start even a possible? For a while, he thought not. Could dry bones live again? Many people live in the valley of dry bones. Some live in that valley for a long time. All of us, at least for a season. Mary and Martha were in that valley when their brother Lazarus died. They sent for the master as soon as he fell ill. But Jesus was delayed. Now Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. "Lord," said Mary, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Then she began to weep. Her fears were so moving that Jesus began to weep as well. For a time, Mary and Martha were living in the valley of dry bones. Some of you have been there. All of us will be in that valley at some time in our lives. There is that lonesome valley we will find ourselves asking, is there any hope? Can I go on? Can these dry bones live again? Yes, even though we walk through the valley of the shadows of pains and devastations and loneliness, remember, God walks along with us. We never travel alone. We will rise. Listen to Prophet Ezekiel. "And the Lord asked me to prophesy to these dry bones. Thus says the Lord God, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. I will lay sinews on you, and I will cause flesh to come upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live. And you shall know that I am God." Our hope is in the Lord. When all else fail, our faith and our trust in God will lead us home. Hope will win. Let hope arise within you, sisters and brothers. Don't give up now. Let us trust the Lord and pray for God's wisdom to prevail upon those scientists and people who are in the front line, doctors and nurses, all of these people globally who are working to find some solution that they will find and hope will realize. May that be so.